Hey there, my name's Evan Kirkham. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Outlier. Outlier is a smarter sports betting platform where users can go from browsing sports betting picks to analyzing sports betting picks to actually executing them on any of the four major sportsbooks, all in kind of one seamless flow. Today, what I want to talk to you about is the art of the pivot, and at least how our company thought about pivoting and the process that we undertook to pivot. And so what you're seeing here on the screen now is a deck that I put together, maybe 12 or more months ago, really kind of aligning the team on how to pivot, when we'll know we've got product market fit, etc. So just a little bit of background. The company today, Outlier, does over 10,000 or really tens of thousands of monthly active users. We monetize by charging $20 a month to our bettors, and we've grown pretty significantly in the last 6 months. But rewind, 12 or 13 months, we were building Colorcast. Colorcast is a social sports talk app where anyone, anywhere with no equipment could commentate on live sports, kind of like a clubhouse for sports. We had grown the company to about 10,500 monthly active users. And we were starting to get concerned about the new economic regime. And what I mean by that is our theory became that unless you're a revenue generating business, you're kind of not a business. And with Colorcast, though we had 10,500 monthly active users, we weren't generating revenue. So we were concerned that we would never get to our next round of financing, that we would never be profitable, or as some say, default alive. So what I'm going to show you now is how we were thinking about addressing the problem and starting to kind of conceptualize a pivot, what we actually did to make that concrete, and sort of the decisions we came to. So here, as you can see by the title slide, this is Colorcast's decision to attack the sports betting market. So let me actually start with the framework here. So jumping right in, here are the 5-phase kind of discovery process. And I should start by noting that I can't take full credit for this. We've got a really, really amazing team. And so this is a collaboration from the entire team. I just have the benefit of being the CEO. So I get to own the ideas as my own, but this is not all my own idea. We pulled from a ton of different sources. I'm just here to tell you about it. So here's the 5-phase discovery process. First, we knew we needed to identify pain points in the sports betting market. And as you'll see, and I'll go into detail here in a second, we did that with customer interviews. Second, we had to rank the pain points. It wasn't really enough to know what the pains were. We needed to know how acute they were and attack the ones that we thought were most acute and where we had the most leverage. Third was we needed to conceptualize solutions. Okay, great. We know that bettors don't like X, Y, or Z, but is there a solution out there that can actually solve this in a unique way and frankly, in an exciting way that we care about and can kind of develop a mission behind? Fourth was a validating solution. So, all right, we have the idea. We know what people are, the pain points they have, but can we do something really lightweight, like a POC or a prototype or something that can actually validate the solution before we go out and spend a bunch of time and resources building it, and then get aligned as a team? That's obviously very, very important. So let's hop in. So step one was identifying the pain points. And I guess actually before I do that, let me show you a little bit kind of what we did, and then I'll break it down phase by phase. So yeah, step one, identify pain point. 70 plus experiential interviews. We talked to sports bettors, sportsbook operators, affiliates, sports tech execs, talked to basically the whole space. In fact, at one point, I was getting reintroduced to the same people over and over again, and they were actually starting to get a little skeptical of me because it felt like some sort of fishing expedition, because I'd hop on the call and all I would do is ask questions. So just be a little wary of that, but know that you've got probably more leash than you expect. So ask the questions. We generated about 100 pain points from that. I don't know how to manage my sports betting bankroll. It's really hard for me to research this type of bet, et cetera, et cetera. From there, we ranked we stack ranked the pain points. We used a service called OpinionX, which really cool service. Actually really love the people over there. Not sponsored, but totally use OpinionX. And what we were able to do is run about 1,000-person test in our target market, asking them questions like, this problem or that problem, what's more acute? This problem or that problem, what's more acute? And what we got at the end, the deliverable, was a full stack ranking of the pain points. Third, we conceptualized the solutions. All right, what is it that we can build to address this stuff? Fourth, validated it. We built some POCs. We'll go into that in a second. Built a fake landing page, which I'll talk about. Got even more feedback on that stuff. And then we aligned on a product vision. We brought in a senior product manager, really helped flesh that out, and then started to build. So let's look a little bit more deeply on each of these 5 phases. So phase 1 was identifying the pain points. So again, what we wanted to do is we wanted to target about 45 interviews. This actually ballooned way beyond that. Like I said, we had 70 plus interviews, but we knew we needed to get different pieces of the ecosystem. So sports bettors, that's probably our customer, but we weren't even sure at that point. Sports bettors, operators, sportsbook affiliates, other tech execs in the space, ask things and start asking experiential questions like, why do you even bother doing this? What are the implications of that, right? Like we never wanted to say, here's the pain point, right? And then just confirm. Like leading questions are really bad. So we, would start. I think I would start by saying something like, take me through the last time you placed a sports bet. And they would talk about, oh, I went here, I went there. And, I'd end up asking, can you tell me a little bit more about that? How did you find out about that site? Or what was kind of a problem you were facing when you were doing that research, right? So asking experiential questions. Again, we wanted to talk about it like, it wasn't our idea, like we had no agenda. I just wanted to learn from them. And that was the truth. So we targeted 45 interviews. We did about 70. So that was phase 1. Some other things, just kind of tips here is, again, avoid talking about your ideas. Do you think this is a good idea? Would you buy that product? Like, don't do that, because chances are you'll just get confirmation bias where the interviewee will say, yeah, that's a great idea. It's a great idea. Because it's just honestly an easier conversation for them to have. So we didn't do that. We didn't want to, we ignored some of their like complimenting ideas and their fluff. And you can see like, oh, this is really great. You guys should think about doing this, et cetera, et cetera. We didn't really want to hear feature suggestions. We just wanted to hear pain points and then come up with our own kind of features to address those. So we tried to, again, you can see this bottom point. If they started suggesting features, we tried to steer the conversation to what they were trying to achieve with that feature, or the pain that they were trying to kind of alleviate with that feature, and avoided kind of discussion about the feature that didn't make much sense. Cool. We also, again, some sports better specific questions like, again, here, when's the last time you placed a sports bet? How did you try to overcome that problem, et cetera, et cetera. Most of this is sports betting centric, but yeah, you want to think about who your cohorts are. Like I said, sports bet, in our case, it was like sports bettors, sports betting affiliates, sports books, et cetera. And you kind of want to have some different set of questions for them because they're different people operating in different ways. Cool. And then of course we want to catalog it correctly. So what's the interviewee background? This is just like general identifying information. Late 30s, white male, sports bettor, bets this much. Here's some of the top pain points and frustrations, top motivators, follow-ups, etc. Now, what we did at every step of the way is, again, we cataloged it in a giant spreadsheet, which I haven't looked at in a while. I probably should look at. We cataloged it in a giant spreadsheet, and we also recorded it. I recorded every single one of the interviews, so I could go back and listen to it. Throughout the interview, they drop references to what turned out to be competitors, right? And we wanted to know about that. So it's definitely worth cataloging it kind of physically, like noting, and also via video. Cool. The next part, phase 2, was ranking the pain points. And again, this is what we call like the customer stack ranking exercise. So you're going to aggregate all the pain points and do a bulk survey asking customers how to rank it. And this is kind of a fun graphic. So like if you asked one person, one potential customer, one interviewee, hey, should we solve this problem for you? They might identify it as, yeah, you should solve that problem because it is in fact a problem. But you really need to see like the larger picture, like where in the ranking of problems does that actually fall? And as a quick aside, I think this is a major problem with a lot of startup founders is they hit on a problem, or what they think is they first conceptualize the problem. Then they go ask people, is it a problem? Is it a problem? Is it a problem? And people are saying, yes, 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 yes. But you really don't have any idea of how widespread that problem is, how urgent the problem is. So you definitely want to go through a stack ranking exercise, which is, again, what we did. And again, I used OpinionX. OpinionX is just a really fantastic service that allows you, they have a huge database of folks that will take surveys, right? They allow you to segment by, all sorts of demographic info, including in our case, have I ever sports bet? I mean, I was like, perfect. And then we sent those questions, those specific customer segments, and started getting the results back. Cool, so that's phase 2. Phase 3 is actually what we call conceptualizing solutions. So great, we know the top pain points. Maybe the top pain point in our case was something like, I actually don't know how to, I want to research my bets, but I don't know how to research my bets. And then when I am able to research my bets, I don't want to then go to the sports book and have to rebuild all of those bets and re-find them. I want to be able to research very, very easily and check out at the point of research, right? So that was our kind of theory of, those were the 2 main problems. And so we undertook what we call the Amazon PR exercise. And it was this: write a fake press release announcing the product or announcing the conceptualized solution. You know, at the time we were calling it Bet App because we just kept punting on what the name would actually be. So it was something like, Bet App releases new, first of its kind end-to-end sports betting operating system where, bettors can research their picks and check out all in one spot. And like we went the full length here. So we even included like quotes, like a prospective fake user saying like, what I really love about Outlier is how easy it is to do X, Y, or Z. So take it seriously, because what you're ultimately doing here is, instead of just like talking about it with your co-founders or whoever else, whatever other stakeholders, instead of just talking about it, actually getting it on paper will prove a few things to you. One, and most importantly, it's like, are we excited about this? Like if I saw this press release in the wild and it had Outlier, like our name on it, would I be thinking to myself, this is awesome? Like, very cool product, super revolutionary. TechCrunch would totally pick this up. So there needs to be some sort of there needs to be a ton of excitement around it. And then 2 is just putting your ideas, and this is nothing revolutionary, but putting your ideas on paper allows you to actually refine the product or the concept of the product in a much easier way than either just talking about it kind of theoretically, or worse, building it and then refining it. So the Amazon PR phase was actually really, really important to us. And we have a cool PR somewhere in Drive. So that was that. And here, I guess I should have gone straight to this slide. So yeah, create a fake press release, regroup as a team, send to stakeholders and prospective customers, see what gets everybody excited. Cool. Phase 4 is validating the solutions. So the idea here is you want to develop a no-code or low-code service. In our case, no-code or low-code microservice that solved for the different pain points or the different and kind of capitalized on the different value props, and see what kind of reaction we get with that. So the whole idea is like, build something that you can test really quickly with either no code or low code, so you can start getting feedback, so you can start tweaking it. Because, maybe and I'll tell you what we did in a second, but what you want to do is you want to measure engagement, like we set up a fake landing page, measure conversions, etc. So here's what we tested: Bet Analyzer bot in this fake landing page. So Bet Analyzer bot. All right. So again, our pain point we were trying to solve was, it's actually really hard to get research that's timely, like hyper relevant and easy to digest. And so we had already built, and this is maybe me going against what I'm about to say, but we had already built some of that tooling. Like we could take a feed from one API provider with sports data and pair it with a odds from a sports book. And we could say, in the last 10 games on the road after a loss, LeBron James has gone over 30 points, 7 out of 10 times. So we already had that little snippet, but we didn't have an app. We just had that like in API form. So what we did is we actually created a Twitter bot, which I think you can still find, called Bet Analyzer bot. And we started just feeding that API to the Twitter bot. And we got and so this is great because it's like baked in distribution. We started distributing it right on #gambling Twitter, which is where all the sports bettors live. And people started reacting to it. They're like, this is cool. Like, that's a great stat. Like, where do I get more of that? Right. And when they asked that, we sent them to this landing page, which our fake landing page, we were calling ourselves at that point BetFuel. And it's actually kind of crazy now that I'm looking back to this. It's like pretty close to the value props that we had. So, or that we're addressing now. So we would send people to BetFuel, the fake landing page, and then they would click the button, get free early access. Well, guess what? That actually wouldn't send them anywhere, right? I think eventually we put a Google form behind it to collect some data, but that didn't really matter. All we were trying to do was grab the click-through rate and have a better understanding of the click-through rate. And so again, what I encourage here in step 4 is once you've ideated the solution, you're really sure what you want to do, build something or find some way to validate the solution without actually having to put the dev effort in. Because here's what happened. If nobody liked BetFuel and nobody clicked through, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter what kind of bells and whistles we attached to the BetFuel solution. It would have been, we would have been getting kind of like marginal gains, right? Another 5% click-through rate or whatever, or less. So the idea is if you can't validate it with something super simple and low code, then it's probably not valid. So anyway, that's what we tested, and that was kind of phase 4 of the analysis. So anyway, in conclusion, it was a really tough decision for us. Again, we were doing 10,500 monthly active users on Colorcast. Like, pivot's always really scary, but by having a really kind of straightforward process, which by the way, we circulated with all of our stakeholders. We said, hey, we're going to go through this 4-step process. We hope we come out on the other side with something really, really compelling that everyone's going to love and get excited about. They saw the Amazon PR copy, right? We told them about the performance of the betting bot. So we got everyone aligned around it and proved to ourselves, probably most importantly, that it was a pivot worth making. And we haven't looked back. So yep, that's how we went from Colorcast to Outlier with the kind of multi-step pivot validation framework. So thanks.
Awesome.
Cool.
That was incredible, Evan. I'm super excited to ask you questions. I have a whole big list here.
Okay, great.
Fuck yeah. I think we'll basically just go in order. So I'll sort of start at the beginning of that story and then ask you questions along.
Yep.
Quickly, I was wondering if you could start by giving us a little bit more background on Colorcast. So what did Colorcast do? What was the value prop there? What was the original idea?
So we didn't go through this whole same exercise with Colorcast, which we probably should have. But the idea was that, I'll even just tell you like the origin story. So I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. I was sitting on my couch listening to or watching Thursday Night Football and listening to Jason Witten and Booger McFarland call the game. I got particularly pissed at Jason Witten because he's a Dallas Cowboy. And in my mind, like, if the Cowboys score, he should be excited. But because he's on ESPN, he had to be purposefully unbiased. And so what I kind of decided, I turned off the TV, kind of infuriated. I'm sure I'm like, it's more hyperbolic in retrospect, but I was frustrated. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't know everything about the Dallas Cowboys, but I can be biased. And maybe someone would want to tune into that. And, got some validation from some early investors and got some people that said, I would totally broadcast a game. And so we just started building, getting traction, raising, building, getting traction, raising. Kind of, we're on that cycle for probably 18 months.
Okay, interesting. That sort of sounds to me like some version of like Twitch streaming, but with like live broadcasts from your
Exactly.
phones?
And it was audio only. So it was like audio very only. Clubhouse. Proud to say we were Clubhouse before Clubhouse, not that it mattered. But we came up with it before we knew about that whole social audio wave. So that was kind of fun.
100%. That's very cool. When you were struggling to monetize that, I'm curious how you decided that it was time to sort of go into, we're going to do this whole big pivot analysis. We're going back to the drawing board on pain points.
Yeah.
As versus just like investing in monetization specifically.
Yeah. So I think there were a few things in there, maybe unrelated concepts, but product market fit is something like that's obviously very hard to nail down. And even what I just showed is less product market fit, and that's more like how to pivot. There's all sorts of frameworks for like proving product market fit when you have it, like, whatever, 100%. NPS scores, all that stuff. Superhuman's got a really good one that we look to now.
Yeah, the 40%.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like that type of stuff. But first of all, we didn't really know about much of that when we were building Colorcast.
Totally.
And just in our gut, we were like, do we have product market fit? Like, it didn't feel like it was necessarily growing organically. It was like, one unit of labor in for one piece of content out, right? So we were like really willing it into existence. So that was part of the problem.
Yeah.
Then the other part was, again, this was kind of early 2022, right when we were starting our last raise. And we were thinking like, okay, we're about to get the seed raise, but like, how do we get to Series A? And at this time, the economic environment was really turning to kind of the regime we live in now. And it was pretty clear that unless you're generating revenue like right now, we're never getting to the A round. And so we had this kind of innovator's dilemma where we're like, all right, we have to, getting to revenue for Colorcast probably would have meant like hundreds of thousands of users and running ads and like trying to spin up that whole business.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was actually a more treacherous path than shelving it and bringing out an entirely new product where we get $20 every time someone uses it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm curious how it felt like from a team perspective to go back to the drawing board. Were you like, crap? Were you ants about it?
So it depends on who you ask on the team. I'm not gonna lie, like wasn't like perfect alignment right off the bat. I think at first is definitely like scary. Also, again, we were in the middle of a race. So like for me, I had to steward those investor relationships. Like I'm like, we're about to close the round, but we're about to build something that you actually didn't invest in. And we don't even have kind of a fully baked idea of. So that was really hard for me. So I felt a ton of just pressure on that, frankly. But I think once we went through this exercise and got alignment from the team and then the stakeholders, and then honestly, I would still probably feel in a world of hurt if like those early POCs didn't really, ramp up fast and work. Work.
Yeah.
That's really what started creating. I mean, yeah. Once you get traction, you're like, yes, like all sins are forgiven.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, alignment was not perfect. I'm not going to pretend it was, but we're, success kind of cures all. So we're feeling really good now.
Yeah. 100%. Looking back at sort of the initial value prop that you had with Colorcast and the pain points that it was addressing versus the value prop and the pain points with Outlier, I'm curious how they feel and felt different. Like, how does current Evan look at what you were building before?
Yeah. Totally different pain points. The only reason we were even on to sports betting is because one of the ways we were thinking about monetizing Colorcast was converting listeners into bettors, and then the sportsbooks would pay us like a finder's fee. So we already had the relationships with the sportsbooks. I've gone out and gotten those relationships, which gave us access to their APIs, which allowed us to start manipulating like the odds and comparing the odds.
Got it.
So we had kind of like, we were already like playing with the data feeds.
Yep.
But it was just a very different product, solving a very different problem, but in a related industry.
Yeah, super interesting. Were you surprised about the problems that were revealed in your initial set of 70 interviews?
Gosh, that's a good question. I got to think about what the problems were now. I mean, yes, but only because I wasn't too learned on the sports betting space, which is another reason why the user interviews are really good. Because this sounds crazy, but I have confidence now that our team could go attack like any space, even if we have no background there. Because if you talk to 70 or 100 people, you're going to all of a sudden you're going to keep hearing the same thing on repeat. Yeah. Like I remember back when I was an attorney, they said that that you've researched all the law when you keep coming across the same case over and over, and you're like, I can't find any new cases. That's when you've pretty much done all the research. Awesome. And that's what started happening with the sports betting interviews. I like stopped hearing anything new.
Yep. Yeah, that's super interesting. When you did the exercise where you had people stack rank problems, were you surprised about how the stack ranking came out?
Yeah, I was. I thought there was going to be a lot more, and maybe this is just because I'd already ideated a solution that I liked. I thought there was going to be a lot more pain around this idea of having to like switch between sports books. We didn't see too much of that. Again, I'd have to go back and look at it, but yeah, I remember there were some things that in my mind, I was like kind of betting on our product being that turned out to not be too much of a problem.
That makes sense. How did investors end up taking it once you sort of briefed them on the whole process that y'all were going to go through?
So depends on the investor. Some investors were very bullish and were basically their trope was, Evan, I invested in you and the team, and you guys are smart and you'll figure it out. And this is what entrepreneurship looks like. Do it.
You're doing the figuring out.
Others were like, what are you doing? This is not the product I invested in. Fortunately now, of course, they're like, always believed in you, like, so smart. Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, thanks, guys. So there was those folks. And then there was the ones who, as you probably well know, there are some investors who just like, I'm like, did you read the email? And then months later, they're like, where's Colorcast? I'm like, dude, what do you mean where's Color? Like, this happened like 8 months ago. But so we had the full gambit.
Wow, that's wild. And then when you guys were recording user interviews, did you use any particular software to do that? Or was it just like the Zoom, Google Meets record?
Zoom. Cool. In retrospect, I probably could have fed it through some sort of like AI summarizer and like gotten a good summary of whatever we did. But no, I was just taking notes real time and recording.
Awesome. And did you do all those interviews yourself, or was it more split across the team?
It started as kind of split across the team because we wanted to make sure everyone was getting competent on it. But then as we, like, those phases pretty much happened in the order that I was suggesting. But like some of that POCing kind of started happening as we started seeing like the same problem over and over and had a hunch that it would be stack ranked pretty high. So at some point the product team kind of pulled off of that. And I really kind of like took it over. I mean, I probably did the last like 30 of them solo. Okay.
And then how did you get in touch with those people? Was it mostly warm intros? Were you doing cold outreach?
Oh, no. I was, well, two things. I was reaching out to what I considered like one, some of the people from the Colorcast community that I already knew were bettors that I had an existing relationship with.
Yep.
Two were just rando cold DMs on Twitter with someone that looked like the profile I figured was going to be a sports bettor, or literally was like, I'm a sports bettor, all that.
Yeah.
So did those. And then in some instances, we just offered to pay them. I'd be like, hey, $50 for 30 minutes. And everyone's like, sure. So, yeah. And then one thing that I think is totally worth saying, if you're moving into a new space, I also started going to like all the trade shows. So in 2022, I think I went to like 4 or more conferences. It was just like around all the vendors and sportsbook operators and everything, because I just wanted to know like how they talked and who the cool kids were. And I needed to know all that just to get a better idea of the landscape.
Totally. Who even the categories are, like what are the
what the categories are like. And then those relationships panned out because some of them became our vendors and I interviewed them, that type of stuff too. So
totally. Yeah, that completely makes sense. And then when you purchased the software to help you guys with stack ranking, do you remember the cost bracket of that?
No, I do not.
I'll dig it out from the website.
Okay,
yeah, no worries. And then when you sent out the press release, did you learn anything from people's reactions to it?
Oh, let me think. Well, again, some of the investors, it was the first time they had like heard of the product. So their reaction was either cool or what do you mean?
Yeah.
I think there was general excitement because for the first time, one cool thing about that exercise is you stop theorizing about it and you actually articulate it. And the team can, beef about even like a single word, which is a good thing. It's like, are we about bet efficiency or betting confidence, right? Like that's actually really important. What'll end up being a really important brand distinction, but it's just hard to have that conversation kind of one-off or, during an all staff and then what's the real result. But like if someone redlines it and there's a comment and then you can comment on the comment and like, it's going to get resolution. And now we know it's confident betting, right? Like, so it's just really important to debate the crossing of the T's and the dotting of the I's on that.
That's super cool. And then with the Twitter bot that y'all built, how did you build that? How long did it take? How did it work?
Yeah, I get a little out of my depth here because I'm not the technical co-founder or technical at all. Yeah,
Roger.
right. So, but like I said, we had already been kind of building those API, or we had already been like toying with the
Playing with the
APIs
data.
because we were thinking about putting it into Colorcast. Um, but even I would say this, I forgot to mention this, even before we like fully hooked it up to Twitter, we were doing this kind of like Wizard of Oz type scheme where we would see someone post what's called a bet slip. So it's like their receipt of the bets they took that night.
Yep.
And then we would just go find the stats on it. And we had a little kind of like tool to do this, but we would go find the stats and then go reply to that tweet. And it felt automatic, and we called it the bot and all that. And we basically said, if you at the bot, it will reply with the stats. Well, funny enough, like sometimes the reply was within 2 minutes. Sometimes it was within 5 hours because I was asleep, you know?
That's amazing.
We Wizard of Oz'd it for a while and just kind of faked like it was a bot. And people were very interested in the automation of those insights.
Interesting.
And so that was another thing that gave us a lot of confidence.
That's super cool. And then what did y'all consider a good click-through rate when you were trying to have people click that button that didn't go anywhere?
Yeah, I think we were pegging it at like 30%, maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, 40%. I hesitate to actually like quote that. No one should trust that.
Okay.
But I think that's
best guess. Cool.
Best guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then how long did the whole process take from initial talking about it to making the PowerPoint to doing the user interviews all the way through the point when you were like, okay, we're ready?
Yeah. Probably about 5 months.
Okay.
But I would say this, it could have taken, it's worth it. Like, and this is actually one of my co-founders saying, so I'm going to steal this from him, or well, and then he stole it from Abraham Lincoln. But like our theory was very much like, if you have 10 hours, spend 9 hours sharpening the axe, 10 hours to cut down a tree, spend 9 hours sharpening the axe. So like we basically put the entire, one guy on the engineering team kind of like maintained Colorcast. But other than that, everybody on the team, which I think there were 5 of us at the time, full-time, full bore.
Yes.
Let's figure out what the pivot's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we went really aggressive on it. It could have taken a lot longer. I mean, there were a ton of steps in there, but we just like banged it out and tried to get to an answer as quickly as we could.
Yeah.
Because you're really racing. I mean, if you're a startup, you're racing the clock always.
Yeah, totally. Do you think you could have done it quicker? Like if you had to do it again?
I could do it again quicker. Yeah. I think that there was some learning like that had to happen there. And I don't know if I would have done even quite as many interviews. Like I probably could cut down on that a little bit once I started hearing the repeats.
Yeah.
There was also things we had to figure out, like how to load up OpinionX with the different pain points.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we could probably do it faster next time around.
Totally. What is your guess at like the quickest you could do it if you had to do it again?
Maybe do it in like 3 months. 3 months.
Okay.
The hard part is the bottleneck is really the interviews.
Yeah.
Because in like the ideation too, like there's going to be debate about solution and all that. But like if you're doing 30-minute calls, what you can do like max probably like 4 or 5 of those a day. Yeah. Right. And you probably book that like 3 days a week. And then it's just and book them. Yeah. So that's the real bottleneck. So I would just try to get started on that as early as possible. And again, you can always, like 2 pieces of advice there. Start earlier than you think because it's going to take a long time to book. Yeah. And 2 is because you're just asking questions, you really don't need to know anything, right? Like you can just go there and be like, what's your experience like with sports betting? And you'll learn along the way. Cool. And also 3rd, I guess, you can always go back to them. So you're not like burning a contact.
Yep.
You'll be able to go back and be like, hey, how about another $30 like, or $50? Like I had some more questions. So just start booking them and knocking them out.
Awesome. And what did y'all do with Colorcast as you were doing this process? Did you leave it up? Were you still trying to grow it? Did you just shut it down?
We basically just went into maintenance mode. So we were like squashing bugs and trying to kind of like keep the community intact because we actually thought we'd be able to transfer the community over a lot better than what actually happened. Yeah. So we were trying to maintain relationships, kind of let everyone down easy and maintain the underlying tech and kind of squash some bugs. But there was no new product development. There was no, and what's crazy is the community could feel that, like, because we were releasing product at such a fast clip before we went into this pivot exploration phase that they could kind of see that like we were doing something else, or like something was stalling, or we were getting distracted. So it's pretty hard to maintain an app in a community if you're having a split focus.
Something else. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yep.
One thing I hear from a lot of founders basically is their confidence in their product is like on this insane roller coaster where some mornings they wake up and they're like, it's going to be awesome. I've got the vision. Fuck yes. And then some days they're like, everyone hates us. Our retention is terrible. I don't know how to grow, whatever. I'm curious how doing this process, or if doing this process, like changed the emotional arc for you around what you're building. Does it feel similar as building Colorcast?
Well, the short answer is I feel that way every day too. So I don't know if I don't know if whatever confidence it gave me like was sustained. I think that's just probably part of being a founder.
Yeah.
Even if you're really crushing it, then you like there's a new high water mark, and then all of a sudden you're not at that high water mark. So it's it's just I think it's just part of it. But it definitely gave, I mean, it did what it was intended to do, which is gave me as much confidence as I could possibly have to pivot without having yet pivoted.
Yeah, that completely makes sense.
Yeah.
And then this is probably a whole different interview, but give me a little bit of a teaser on what building it looked like coming out of this, understanding what the pain points were after the Amazon brief.
Yeah. So then, I mean, it basically became like, okay, what does MVP solutioning that problem look like? So we knew we needed to kind of be able to aggregate all the stats in one place. That was like a requirement of the MVP. We knew you needed to be able to check out on the individual books straight from the apps. That was a requirement of the MVP. But then you basically we just got into this, like, I mean, again, probably a whole different interview, but you know, the art of the MVP, just like something that's like solves the solution, it solves the pain point, and that's it. And we tried to ship it as quickly as we could. We probably could have shipped even faster. We did want to put a few like bells and whistles on it just for fun before we shipped it. But yeah, I mean, we immediately got to building. And like I said, some of the tech that we were doing in the background was already coming into play. So it wasn't just like, okay, here's the new project. There was underlying stuff that was already being worked on.
Cool. We're getting near the end here. Maybe last thing is just, I'm curious if there's anything, if you can imagine other founders setting out to do this process, that you're like, a founder might be apt to skip blah step, or they might forget blah. And really, I would encourage you to XYZ.
The stack ranking is the big piece because, like I said before, you're gonna hear the same problem multiple times. Like the stack ranking exercise, again, is trying to evaluate the acuteness of the problem, which is very different than like the recurrence of the problem. So when you're in the interviews, you might keep hearing, I don't know how to evaluate parlays. And you're going to hear that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you might be predisposed to think, okay, that is the acute problem. No, that's not acuteness. That's just recurrence. Acuteness is actually something very different, which is, okay, everyone has that problem, but like, they don't actually even care to solve it. And the more acute problem is the fact that I can't even place the bet, right? So I feel like you could easily be duped into skipping the stack ranking because you think that you know what you heard and that must be the most acute. Yeah,
that's super interesting. That's a great tip. I can easily imagine doing that, having done user interviews. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, awesome. Anything else you want to share on the process?
Not really. It's, takes courage, and not everyone's going to be aligned. And again, if it had gone poorly, then, you know, I don't know, I'd probably be a lawyer again right now, but, but I don't know, just trust yourself, trust your team, trust the process, stay really orderly. Like if you skip a step, then, or whatever process, not that you have to use this one, but whatever process you come up with, just articulate it to the team, get team alignment on it, and then run through it. Because then at the end, not that you want like plausible deniability, but it's like, no, we said we were going to do these 5 things. We did these 5 things. Here's the conclusion we all came to. Here's what we all agreed on. We're going to do it. So you really just need to like, it's hard to keep alignment and buy-in from we should pivot to here's what we're pivoting to.
Yeah. So
just being like super methodical about it helps keep that alignment.
Awesome. That totally makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Evan. This was awesome. Everyone should go check out Outlier. And I'll see you around.
Cool. Thanks, Mindy.
All right. Bye.